She froze in the doorway, heels sinking into the plush carpet she'd paid a fortune for, the soft fibers suddenly feeling like quicksand. For a split second, her mind refused to accept the picture in front of her. The nanny was supposed to be here. There was a strict schedule, background checks, contracts thicker than novels. Yet there he was, a man she barely recognized, sitting on her designer sofa, cradling her baby as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her first instinct was fear. Sharp, electric, a stranger, her child, her home. Her fingers tightened around the leather handle of her handbag, knuckles whitening, heart hammering so loudly she was sure he could hear it. She opened her mouth to shout, to demand explanations, to call security. But no sound came out. Because her baby wasn't crying. Her daughter lay nestled in the crook of the man's arm, tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb, eyes half-lidded with sleepy trust. He held the bottle at just the right angle, pausing every few seconds, just like the pediatrician had instructed. With his free hand, he gently rubbed small circles on her back. Not clumsy, not hesitant, confident, familiar. The billionaire single mom, who negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, who had fired executives mid-sentence, felt her breath hitch. He murmured something under his breath, nonsense sounds, the kind parents make when words feel too big. His voice was low, calm, grounding. The baby sighed, milk dribbling at the corner of her mouth, utterly content. It hurt in a place she didn't like to visit. Because she recognized that posture. The slight forward lean, the careful support under the neck, the instinctive way he checked the bottle temperature against his wrist. She'd done that, every night, alone, exhausted, crying silently so the baby wouldn't hear. She had memorized every breath her daughter took, terrified she'd stop. And here was someone else doing it, effortlessly. Her shoe scraped softly against the floor. The man looked up. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. His eyes widened, and guilt flashed across his face. Not the guilty look of someone caught doing something wrong, but the reflexive alarm of a parent interrupted mid-care. He straightened slightly but didn't pull the bottle away. He didn't drop the baby. That alone calmed her more than any apology could have. He began, then stopped, glancing down at the baby as if choosing his words carefully. She was crying, he said quietly. Really crying. The kind that doesn't stop. He swallowed. I'm a dad. Instinct. Her gaze flicked to the empty corner where the nanny's bag usually sat. The play mat neatly folded. The monitor still on. Nothing looked disturbed. No signs of panic. Just calm. How long? She asked, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. He checked the clock on the wall. About 15 minutes. Maybe 20. Too long. Her chest tightened. She should have been here. She'd left early for a meeting she could have rescheduled. Another deal. Another obligation she'd told herself was for her daughter's future. Her baby finished the bottle and made a tiny satisfied noise, lips smacking. The man gently eased the bottle away, holding it upright to avoid air bubbles. Then, without being told, he burped her. Soft pat. Pause. Another pat. A tiny burp escaped. The baby smiled. Not the reflex smile babies give anyone. The real one. The one that starts in the eyes. Something twisted sharply inside her. Her voice faltered. She cleared her throat. That's her burp sound. He smiled back at the baby, not at her. My son had the same one. Son. The word landed heavier than she expected. She stepped fully into the room now, the scent of warm milk and lavender filling the air. She noticed details she'd missed before. The worn edges of his jacket, the faint dark circles under his eyes, the calluses on his hands. Working hands. Not the manicured kind she was used to seeing in boardrooms. Who are you? She asked, softer now. He shifted carefully, ensuring the baby's head stayed supported. Ethan, he said, I work maintenance in the building. Elevators, HVAC, leaks. I was on this floor when the crying started. Her eyes widened. You're not supposed to enter private residences. I know. He met her gaze steadily. I wouldn't have, but the nanny had already left. The door was unlocked, and your baby was alone. A cold wave washed over her. Unlocked. Alone. I stayed in the doorway at first, he continued, as if sensing her spiral. I called out. No answer. Then she started choking on her cries. His jaw tightened. I couldn't walk away. She believed him. That was the most unsettling part. She looked at her daughter again. Peaceful, safe, alive. Her shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her all at once. She sank into the armchair opposite him, the weight of her world pressing down. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she wasn't entirely sure why. To him, to herself, to the tiny life she'd sworn to protect. He shook his head. "You came back. That's what matters. No judgment, no accusation." That kindness almost undid her. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the baby monitor and the city noise far below. She watched him, really watched him, as he adjusted the baby blanket, as he instinctively checked her breathing. Every move screamed experience. "How old is your son?" she asked. "5, he said, a shadow crossing his face. "My wife passed when he was 2. Cancer. Fast." Her chest tightened again. Different pain. Same loneliness. "I had childcare fall through this morning," he added. "I brought him to the building. He's in the break room with crayons and cartoons. I was fixing a leak when I heard her." She nodded slowly. 2 parents doing their best. Worlds apart, yet standing in the same room for the same reason. Her baby stirred, fussing slightly. Without thinking, she leaned forward. "She likes her head rubbed like this," she said, demonstrating with gentle strokes. Ethan adjusted immediately. The baby settled. Their fingers brushed. She pulled her hand back as if burned. "I should," he started, glancing toward the door. "I should go. I'm sorry for crossing a line." She opened her mouth to agree, to restore order, to reassert boundaries. Instead, she heard herself say, "Would you stay a minute?" He hesitated, searching her face. "My hands are shaking," she admitted quietly. "And she needs to be burped again." Ethan nodded and remained seated, steady as an anchor. And for the first time since becoming a mother, surrounded by wealth but drowning in solitude, the billionaire single mom allowed herself to breathe, because someone else, unexpectedly, knew exactly how to hold her world together. Ethan stayed. Not because she insisted, not because of obligation, but because the baby shifted again, letting out a soft, uncertain whimper that neither of them could ignore. He rose smoothly, pacing the room with slow, measured steps, the way people do when they've walked countless nights with a child pressed to their chest. The billionaire single mom watched him from the armchair, her hands clenched together, pulse finally slowing as her daughter relaxed once more. "I can take her," she said after a moment, standing abruptly, as if remembering herself. He didn't resist. He transferred the baby with careful precision, waiting until her arms were fully secure before letting go. The weight felt heavier than usual, not physically, but emotionally, as if the moment had changed something she couldn't name. Her daughter nestled into her shoulder, breathing deep and even. "She trusts you," Ethan said quietly. The words hit harder than any accusation ever could. They stood there, awkward now, the silence thicker. She cleared her throat. "You said your son is downstairs." "Yes." He glanced at his watch. "I should check on him." She nodded, then surprised herself again. "Bring him up." Ethan blinked. There's food here. Space. Toys." She gestured vaguely at the immaculate living room that suddenly felt too pristine, too unused. "And I'd like to meet him." Suspicion flickered across his face, but it wasn't greed. It was caution. A man who had learned the hard way not to trust sudden generosity. "I don't want to get you in trouble," he said carefully. She almost laughed. "I own the building." That did it. His shoulders dropped slightly, tension easing. "Okay," he said. 5 minutes. When he returned, a small boy trailed behind him, clutching a crumpled piece of paper covered in uneven crayon lines. He had his father's eyes, curious, alert, but there was a guardedness there too, the look of a child who had learned to assess rooms quickly. "This is Liam," Ethan said. "Buddy, this is..." She crouched down before he could finish. "Hi, Liam, I'm Emma, not Ms., not Mrs., just Emma." Liam studied her, then glanced at the baby in her arms. "She smells like milk," he announced. Emma smiled. "She does. What does your drawing smell like?" Liam considered this seriously. "Blue." Ethan snorted despite himself. They moved to the kitchen, where Emma insisted they eat something. Real food, not the protein bars Ethan admitted he'd grabbed in a rush that morning. She warmed soup, cut fruit, moved with a confidence that surprised even her. This was familiar territory, feeding people, nurturing in the small, quiet ways no one applauded. Liam perched on a stool, chattering about dinosaurs and elevators. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching Emma with a look she'd seen on no one in years. Not admiration, recognition. You do this alone too, he said softly. She paused. Every day. That night, after Ethan and Liam left, the apartment felt different. Not emptier, quieter, charged. Emma stood by the window long after the lights in the city blurred into stars, replaying the day in her mind. The way her daughter had relaxed in Ethan's arms. The way she herself had relaxed in his presence. She didn't sleep much. Days passed, then weeks. Ethan became a fixture. Not as a helper, not as an employee, but as someone who belonged. He fixed things, yes, but he also stayed to talk. Sometimes he brought Liam. Sometimes Emma's daughter was awake, sometimes asleep. They learned each other's rhythms. Discovered shared exhaustion, shared humor, shared silence. One evening, while Liam and the baby napped on opposite ends of the sofa, Ethan spoke the words Emma had sensed were coming. I need to be honest, he said. I was offered another job. Better pay. Closer to my son's school. Her chest tightened. When? Soon. She nodded, masking the rush of panic. You should take it. I don't want to leave, like this. He gestured between them, vague but honest. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Not as a savior, not as a problem, but as a man who had stepped into her life without asking for permission and somehow made it fuller. I don't want you to stay because of me, she said. He smiled sadly. I know. That's why I told you. That night, Emma did something she'd never done before. She asked for help. She told him about the nights she cried into silk pillows. About the deals she closed while pumping milk in private bathrooms. About the terror of loving someone so completely it hollowed her out. Ethan listened, didn't interrupt, didn't fix. When she finished, he said only, you don't have to do this alone. Neither of them kissed the other. Not then. The next morning, Emma made a call. Then another. By afternoon, the offer was formal. A role in one of her companies, facilities director, with benefits, flexible hours, and childcare support. She presented it to Ethan without flourish. This isn't charity, she said firmly. You're good at what you do. And I trust you. He stared at the contract, then at her. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Months later, the apartment echoed with laughter. Toys littered the once pristine floor. Liam's drawings hung on the fridge beside business schedules and pediatric reminders. Ethan cooked. Emma learned to let go. They weren't a fairy tale. They argued. They stumbled. But they showed up. And sometimes, late at night, when both children slept and the city held its breath, Emma would watch Ethan feed her daughter, and she'd remember the moment she walked in and found a stranger holding her world.